Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to be talking with Dr. Ronnie Gaines today. He is the author of BFF, Becoming Your Spouse's Best Friend Again, which I have read and it is phenomenal. And anyways, just so glad to really connect with him on this. And we're going to talk about the topic of restoring desire after distance, a roadmap to reignite intimacy without forcing it. So, Ronnie, it's so great to have you on today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your book?
So I am a pastor first, and actually I'm a husband first, and then I'm a pastor, but I'm also a professor at university around in Tulsa. And so I have a great opportunity to meet with many couples. That's my wheelhouse. That's my joy, is to meet with couples and to help them through, premarital, but also through crises. So the book BFF, Becoming Your Spouse's Best Friend Again, was actually launched because of a time I spent with a couple, and my master's is in marital and family therapy, so I've got all of these ideas and all these approaches and all these techniques that's embedded inside of me. And I've used so many of those to help couples in so many ways. And I found that many times the couples would be on a journey of doing all the right things and doing all the necessary things that it takes, intentional things to create a healthy marriage. But I found that many of them, even though they were doing those necessary things, were still falling apart. And I just could not figure that out. And so I began to really watch couples as they would come into the room, and I would listen to their stories. And I was finding that many of them were doing everything in their power to make this work, and it was still not working. And I noticed one couple that came in is where I really noticed this one element that I believe that was missing from what I was doing, because I was taking this personal. I was thinking that, it's my fault. I'm not giving them what they need, and they need more than just the techniques and approaches. And so one day I was watching a couple, and I was dealing with some of the things that they were going through. They were doing everything they could, the right things. And so I was back kind of watching them, and I was watching them interact, and they got real quiet, and something dawned on me. They were doing all the right things, but they had lost something that they had developed even while they were dating and years ago, and that was their friendship. They were trying to do all the right things as a couple, but they had lost their friendship. They just had lost that element, that just to have fun and just enjoy each other and be around each other. They had lost that. So I started on this journey of just creating some things about what is it in my marriage and my wife and I's marriage that caused us to think back or go back to places and try to rekindle that friendship. And it started working. And I just watched this, as I mentioned to this one couple. I think I know what's wrong. And when I said to the lady, I said, the wife, I said, I feel like that you're grieving because you've lost your best friend, and that best friend has died. And she just began to weep. And I hit that very element because she had lost. She was grieving because she felt like she had lost that person. And he was sitting right next to her, and they were both just numb. And so I began the journey of helping them build that marriage, or that friendship in their marriage, all over again. My wife and I have been married for almost 38 years. We dated for 6, so we've been together for a minute, and we still do those necessary things that help just rekindle, to help build that friendship and keep that friendship strong. So that's kind of a little bit about me, and that's a little bit about the book. And I think it's going to segue right in, Fields, to what you have planned for today and what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Ronnie. Yeah, so it's we have these things that cause distance, right? Whether it is in like my case that I help men with of a sexual integrity issue, or it's just the busyness of life that we've drifted, or we're really kind of pursuing one thing or pursuing another thing. And what we really want to do is, how do we restore desire for one another, where it's like, man, I really want this relationship. I want this to thrive. I want my best friend back, kind of thing. So we're going to go into a few things here that really will help us on the road of restoring that. And the first one that we've really identified is changing the way you think. Can you talk to us a little bit about why that is so important?
Fields, I think it's one of the first foremost things. It really doesn't have a lot to do with the couple. It has more to do with the individual to be the best that we can be for our spouse. We can be try to be everything we can for them, and in the meantime failing on our side, and it does not create a great foundation for the marriage. And so I believe that, just as I've heard this stated many times, if you want to change the things around you, you must first be the change. And so many times we look at the other person as being, you need to change, you need to do this. And sometimes we need to look back at ourselves and say, what do I need to change first? One of the things I ask many of the couples when they're first getting married is can you marry this person without having to change anything? Now, doesn't mean that there are some things that needs to be changed, but can you marry them just the way they are? And it really, think about this. And I tell them, think about this. If you spent the rest of your life with them, would you be okay with the way they are? And if you can say yes to that, then we can work through the parts about what needs to change. And I believe that there's many things that need to change. One is is the way we think, because you will act on whatever you believe. I think I've heard it said like this, and if I can get this correct, that if you believe it will work, then you will experience opportunities. If you believe it won't work, then you will experience obstacles. Either way, if you say you can or you say you can't, you're correct. You're right. So again, it's the way you think and the way that you see or believe what your information you're receiving.
Yeah. I loved when we were kind of talking about this. You said your interpretation is needs to come after you get all the facts, not
Yes.
before you get all the facts. We need to pause. If there's something where there's this, what's going on here? It's like, wait, wait, wait. Let's pause. Let's get all the facts first, because from your interpretation comes feelings. Feelings are followed by behaviors, and behaviors have a consequence, whether that consequence is good or bad. And I loved how you were diving into really like, okay, you want a biggest change, of course, start with yourself, take that responsibility. But the thing that needs to change is that we're not just randomly interpreting things, but okay, honey, what are all the facts here? Can I be missing something? And I thought that was extremely powerful as you're building towards unity again.
Yeah, and Fields, I have many couples that are just confused. I don't know what she wants. I don't understand her. I don't understand him. I don't know what he wants. And I said, you know what? There's a simple solution to this. If you do not know what they want, ask. And so sometimes we think that we've got it figured out, and we don't. So the best thing to do is find out, get clarity. And even if it's a situation, you're in a conflictual situation, we don't normally have all the facts. And many times what we do when we're in conflict and we're getting ready to be in a conflictual, situation with our spouse, what we do is we create these attributions in our mind, which are basically explanations of what that person really meant when they said that, or what they were thinking. And we're mind readers. So we always know what our spouse is thinking because we tell them, I know what you're thinking. So we tell them. So what we do is we create these attributions in our own mind. And these attributions, usually when we do that, we create attributions for our own benefit, because I'm going to win this argument. So I'm going to create these things in my mind to help me, to be to my benefit. And what happens is I try to win and we end up both losing. And so what we have to do is, instead of creating attributions, because attributions are really subjective unless you have the facts, like you said. When you have those facts and you ask them, please give me clarity. When they give you clarity, that information is not interpreted for my benefit anymore. Because what happens, Fields, is this: when we interpret something and we don't have the facts, it usually will bring us to a state of psychological tension, especially if we're giving attributions to things that we don't really know, but we're doing it for our benefit. It causes our emotions to rise high. And so what happens is when our emotions rise high, I say it like this, that the speed of a hard conversation determines the intensity of the emotions. Many times these emotions rise, we get in a state of psychological tension and we shut down. We don't have that conversation to ask, what did you really mean? Or what does this mean? What did that look mean? What did that sigh or that facial expression, what did that mean? Instead, we think we know and we give an attribution to it. And then, like you said, when we do that, that goes to a feeling instantly. In anything that we do, we receive information, then we interpret it. It goes to a feeling. When it goes to a feeling, there will be a behavior follow. No matter whether it's good or bad, there's going to be behavior. That feeling could be anger, it could be excitement, it could be whatever. But then the behavior that will follow that is it's not just a there's probably another one in between that, which would be a belief. Because if that feeling is anger, then my belief is that you've done this to me, and now my behavior is I'm gonna get back at you. Or I'm gonna do something. You've triggered me, now I'm gonna get back at you. Once you've had a behavior, whether it's good or bad, then there's always an effect. Always, whether it's good or bad.
Yep. Absolutely. I love it. So as we're going towards restoring desire, I kind of see it like this is we have changed the way you think, make sure you clarify on things, and then the personal development. You take responsibility and be the best you can be feeds into building a friendship, feeds
Yes.
into building a desire for your spouse again. So it's we do those foundational parts first, and this is kind of like the roadmap, and then we can invest into reigniting the desire. Ronnie, can you talk to us about like what are some things we can do? We've done work on ourselves and stuff. How can we start to kindle this desire, kindle a friendship again, kindle love again, even though there has been distance in the past?
Well, Fields, you talk about desire, and desire comes because of it takes for me to desire my wife. First of all, I have to change the way I think a little bit, because I have to work on me first. But then the next part of that would be we start working on ourselves and we think, how would we get that desire, or how would we even be desired? Well, the first thing is I believe that the success of a marriage can sometimes cause failure. Now, let me explain what that means, because we're talking about desire here. So if there's two things that will cause a successful marriage to fail, one of them is pride. The first thing is this, is that nothing can destroy my marriage. Absolutely. My marriage is so good, nothing can destroy it. So when we have pride set in, then it leads to the second one, which is apathy. When pride sets in, I get lazy. I don't do the necessary things. So if I want my wife to desire me, then I need to do something that creates a desire. So, I mean, it's hard to desire who's not being intentional, who's not paying attention, not doing the right things. And you come in and you kick your boots off and you just smell and you stink and you don't take care of yourself. And then, you want that person to desire you, and I'm not talking about just desire physically, but I know we're talking about emotionally and all of that. We have to do the intentional things for that person to desire us. And that scripturally, as a man, if we go into the aspects of Ephesians chapter 5, for a woman to desire a man, the man must be as Christ is to the church. The husband must be to the wife. But as we talk about what does it mean to have desire, first of all, is don't let pride set in and don't get apathetic in your relationship. Do the necessarily right things, court her, date her. And I know I'm talking from a man's standpoint here because I'm the man, but date her, court her, do the necessary things. And, I love Dr. Book, The Five Love Languages. Everybody has that book, I think. I mean, that book sold more copies than most books. It's next to the Bible, I think. But he says in there that many times we want them to desire us, and so we do things for them. But he says, are we doing the right things? Because many times we beat our head against the wall thinking, I'm doing all these things, but I'm still not getting any response. And the question is, are you doing the right things? Those things are good, but the right things matter. If we want them to desire us, then we do the right things and necessary things and stop the laziness and be intentional about making that happen.
Yeah. That last, I think it really sums up in what you just the last word you just said is be intentional. Intentionality is really, really, really what we got to put into this, and not, like you said previously, not just thinking of what they want or what they need or whatever, but really getting in there and figuring them out. You should be a master of what your spouse likes. I want to touch on one other thing on desire. I have a little bit of an interesting view on it because I feel like desire is neutral. And because some people are like, okay, well, like with the men I work with, they're like, man, I have this desire for my wife, but I also like have this desire to look at inappropriate images and things of that sort. It's like, how do we have both of the desires? And what I've seen is whatever desire you feed will grow. And you may have been feeding the desire for your wife, but you're over here feeding the desire for other women too simultaneously, and they're both growing. And what we have to do is we have to starve the desire that we don't want, and we have to go full force into feeding the desire that we do want, and really leaning into being intentional, really leaning into dating our wife, courting our wife, like you said. And that is how you really ignite a fire of desire for your wife, and making sure the other desire goes away, dwindles down to nothing. Anyways, I'm just working with men in kind of the purity aspect of it. That is one thing that we really, really have to be aware of and make sure we get right when we're pursuing our wife, and that we're not building other desires at the same time.
It's so good. That's such a great way to put it, and I agree. You know, social media can, sometimes I've had guys that like, well, I don't look at porn or anything like that. But it's not always that. It's social media in itself, because sometimes we see other. I've dealt with men with this. They've seen other wives on Facebook, and they're like, "Man, I wish you would look like that. I wish you'd take care of yourself like that." And if we would just think and be intelligent about this and use some emotional intelligence, we would realize that that picture that that woman took probably was the 50th picture to get it to look just right. We're comparing our spouse to someone who has even doctored the picture through Photoshop. And so we look at that, and that's so degrading that we use something like that, and that really causes a wedge between. And one of the things I wanted to mention too is Fields, when we're creating desire, sometimes, again, I go back to the apathy, the very getting very lazy in our relationship. But it really matters what you do when your marriage is really doing well, for the times that maybe your marriage has a rough spot. Because if you're not taking care of the marriage in the way you should when it's going really well, the rough spots are going to really be disastrous. So during those good times, you can't get lazy. Show the right things, display the right things, do the right things continuously. It's not just whenever you're in trouble or you're getting ready to be kicked out to the doghouse. That's not whenever you do everything right. You do it right when it's good. And then it matters when you go through a rough time.
That is such challenging words. Thank you so much. That's phenomenal. Just a wonderful word of advice there to really cap this off. Guys, and whoever's watching this, again, I suggest going to his website, Master Level Marriage, getting the book BFF, Becoming Your Spouse's Best Friend. Again, if you're interested in the course, get that too, just because it is phenomenal, or a phenomenal resource to really invest into your marriage. Again, if you're on the side of things where sexual integrity is an issue, or you're not walking in that and you want to walk with that, I help men who even I can help any man, but I primarily help Christian men who have recently been caught by their spouse viewing that they were viewing pornography or in an affair. If that's you in any way, I'd love to talk to you. You can go to establishdominion.com. If that's not you, I still have another free resource called 3 Steps to Preventing Unwanted Sexual Desires. And it's a phenomenal way to really, when temptation is coming on, how to break that off really quick. That is establishdominion.com/gift. And I'll put all these links down on the bottom. But yeah, Dr. Ronnie would love to help you in your marriage. I would love to help you in sexual integrity. And again, thank you so much for just your words of wisdom and really just challenging us as husbands to really, really, not just in the down times, but really even in the peaks, to be very intentional, be really pursuing our spouses and just giving it our all. And I just love that. So thank you again so much.
Yeah, well, thank you again for this podcast and YouTube, your YouTube channel, where whatever platform you're taking it to. And again, if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can reach out to me via my Facebook page. It's Dr. Ronnie Gaines. You can reach out to me on my website, and it'll also show you the podcast. And I just give as much info as I can. In fact, this one may be on there too. You never know. If you want the book, get it. I'll pay for your shipping. And also just find me on social media.
So thank you again. And I'll see y'all later.